Most of us walk through life convinced we are passengers inside our own heads. We treat our thoughts and emotions like weather, watching them roll in, reacting to them, and assuming we are simply experiencing a world that is happening to us. In psychology, this is known as the passive recipient view of consciousness. It is the everyday assumption that we are merely audiences to our own minds, taking in data without actively shaping it. But the framework of quantum mindfulness introduces a core friction, the observer effect paradox. This is the challenge of observing a system without altering it, particularly in the context of self-observation, where the act of observing one's own mind inevitably changes it. This conceptual diagram illustrates the mechanics of that paradox. It is structurally impossible to look at a system without changing it. When a neutral mental state is hit by our attention, it immediately forces the abstract wave to change. The act of noticing your own mental state changes the trajectory of that state. You cannot quietly observe your anger or joy without injecting new energy into it and locking it into a new configuration. This leads to the observer-participant theory. This is a framework demonstrating that conscious engagement with mental phenomena constitutes an active participatory process that shapes the fabric of experienced reality. Under this theory, we are not biological cameras recording an external world. We are active participants. The act of observation is an act of creation. If our observation actively constructs the reality we experience, we need to locate the internal control room where these signals originate before they reach the physical world. This diagram displays that control room. At the absolute top of the mind's hierarchy sits the prime modality, or M1, the cognitive executive triad governing perception, intention, and interpretation. It's the foundational scaffolding of consciousness itself. M1 is divided into 3 distinct layers. The highest is the psycho-volitional dimension, or PD1. This is the absolute genesis of cognitive activity, a state of pure potentiality representing our primal will and power to dissolve perceived limitations. The energy then drops to the psycho-conceptive dimension, PD2. This is the primordial threshold where abstract potential coalesces into intuitive, pre-linguistic ideas, providing the initial spark of generative ideation. Finally, it reaches the psycho-meditative dimension, PD3. This is the analytical cognitive function responsible for logical organization and conceptual stabilization, where raw intuition is organized into coherent understanding. These 3 dimensions work sequentially. They take raw will, filter it through intuition, and organize it through logic to synthesize a single unified output. That output is the cognitive appraisal. The cognitive appraisal is the master control signal that translates a complex observation into a single high-level judgment, providing the overarching directional impetus for the rest of the mind. Before your body moves, M1 has already functioned as the architect of the experience. It has already determined the nature of the reality you intend to experience. Once that master control signal is formed at the apex of your consciousness, it travels down through the rest of the psychological architecture. This chart tracks the downward travel of that signal, a process called the psychodynamic wave collapse. This is the sequence where undifferentiated mental potential transforms into recognizable ideational forms and solidifies into concrete reality. The cascade funnels continuously until it strikes its final destination, the psychotranspersonal dimension, or PD10. The psychotranspersonal dimension is the interface between internal psychodynamic systems and external reality. P10 is a strictly passive conduit. Its sole function is to receive internal energies and externalize them into the physical environment. This is the mechanical moment an abstract thought crosses the threshold to become a spoken word or a concrete physical action. Because P10 is passive, it will express whatever reaches it. The only intervention is if that expression is actively negated by the willpower of P1 at the top of the chain. This means our physical actions are not random occurrences. They are the final results of a structured collapse initiated by our highest order consciousness. Mapping this architecture provides a framework for addressing the feeling that we are simply victims of our own impulses. Understanding this pipeline leads to a state of cognitive agency. Cognitive agency is the state of possessing deliberate influence over how potential experiences collapse into actual experiences. This model suggests that a structural gap exists between a triggering event and our reaction, a space where conscious intervention becomes possible. The goal is to step into the role of the quantum observer and engage in the craftsmanship of collapse. This is the practice of influencing how raw potential becomes actualized reality. We have a choice. We can live automatically, letting thoughts move blindly down the cascade into physical action, or we can choose the sovereign route, intentionally managing the reality we project into the world. By claiming our role as observer participants, we cease being passive witnesses to our lives and begin the process of intentionally managing the reality we experience.